The Animal Crossing series has gone 7 years without a new mainline entry. While there is something to say for the Western release a year later or the welcome Amiibo update in 2016, the fact remains we've been waiting for quite a while. At E3 2019 we finally got a look at the game in motion as well as a release date of March 20th, 2020. With the wrap-up trailer during the last Direct going over elements covered in the Treehouse segment, now is the best time to jump into what we discovered while shifting in tons and tons of footage. We're basically going to give you the rundown of how this game opens, the new elements showcased, and some other trinkets we found worth discussing. First off, let's discuss how you reach a new island in the first place. The E3 trailer opens with you taking a charter flight to the island, but it doesn't elaborate on the full picture. This is immediately expanded upon in the Welcome to Island live trailer, where we see the player avatar arriving on the abandoned island completely filled to the brim with weeds. The dock, on the other hand, is in pretty good condition though. Dodo Airlines, the name of the airline that brought you to the island, has a settlement there. Now we wonder if there'll be a Dodo character that will do all the regular introductions before landing on the island. At this moment that's hard to make out, but it would make a lot of sense. On a side note, this is the first time in an Animal Crossing game where you arrive in town from the bottom of the map. This is only the first out of many ways the game changes things up. Another thing to note here is who joins you on your arrival. While this could just be the way the footage is cut, you can quite clearly see two animal friends heading towards the Resident Services Center. This might imply that you're arriving at the same time as the first animals on the island, which in this case are Bill the Duck and Tammy the Cub. Just like you, they'll be starting off in a tent provided by Nook Inc. staff. And Nook Inc. is a development company, both interested in providing services for you as well as expanding the brand new town. The three of you meet up, and Tom Nook and his cousins will tell you it's their duty to support you and ensure your safety on the island. You can't really do much in this scene as the evil cardboard boxes are blocking the island's bulletin board. In the first act of freedom in the game, you're free to place your tent anywhere on the map. And when we say anywhere, we really mean anywhere. For the first time in franchise history, players can place their tent, and by extension furniture, on the beach. The game doesn't hesitate to show this off as the in-game character, named Ken, sets up shop on the shores. While we don't think you can do this once houses come into the picture, spending your initial time on the beach can prove quite charming. The tent and its size aren't much to shout about, but hey, it does come with its own mailbox, so that's a +1 for the Nook family. Once you're settled, the real journey of the game begins. You'll meet Tom Nook once more and he'll hand you your itemized bill. This bill includes everything: airfare, accommodations, labor, tax, and of course, the NookPhone, which we'll return to in a bit. Anyway, the bill is 49,800 bells, which you can pay within a tent at Resident Services. Roughly 50,000 bells is higher than purchasing a house in any of the previous titles, with New Leafs being the most expensive at 39,800 bells, and others around the 20,000 mark. But here's the kicker. Just like previous Animal Crossing games, you don't have to pay it if you don't want to. In the older iterations, you'd have a small house, but large parts of the game would be unaffected. The situation is a bit different when it comes to New Horizons. The developers have stated that Tom Nook will think you just want an easygoing life. He won't offer you any new services during your island ventures. That means if you're eager to get the most out of New Horizons, you're better off paying your bills. The game wants you to fully build up your island from scratch and see shops and other residents appear over the course of a year, if not longer. The developer's focus is expanding your freedom in multiple ways and constantly giving you new tools to play around with. Speaking of tools, let's discuss the first tool you receive from the Tanuki himself, the NookPhone. The phone basically acts like your in-game menu. It offers a variety of options from the applications. In any case, the first one on the docket is the camera. In the treehouse footage, we get a better look at all the functions, including zoom and a variety of filters. Next to the camera option, we have Nook Miles. These are objective-based missions, and he'll grant you miles once you reach a certain threshold. They go beyond what the Welcome Amiibo update did, as finishing one step of the process is simply not the end. Objectives include removing weeds and interacting with the islanders. So what can you get for Nook Miles? Well, we don't know exactly. During the Treehouse presentation, the developers mentioned you can exchange them for items as well as certain activities. We'll get to the third option, DIY recipes, in just a minute, but let's first discuss the last set of applications. The fourth option seemingly allows you to see and make various clothing patterns, which was obviously an option in the previous games as well. Next to it is a map. While we don't get a look at this, there is a map and clock when you stand still during the treehouse footage, so it's likely a larger version of that. Next up, an option that will give you the vibe of a passport. This is likely where you'll see your personal information. Finally, there's the seventh app, the Cool Islander option. This allows you to access local multiplayer. We'll touch on this more later on. Alright, time for the DIY menu. As we hop in, we can quite clearly see how much crafting matters in New Horizons. First up, there's a variety of tools you can conjure up and use to aid you in various tasks. Let's start with the flimsy axe. By using the tool to chop into trees, various wood types will fall out, hardwood and softwood, in addition to tree branches. This makes the importance of wood 10 times more severe. In fact, most of your initial DIY projects are made with wood in mind. Interestingly, it does seem the flimsy axe struggles to chop down a tree fully. We don't know if you just straight up can't, but luckily there's a different way of moving trees. That brings us to the flimsy shovel, which straight up needs 5 hardwood units to be crafted. Of course, the shovel can be used for the usual activities like digging up fossils, which we see in the footage provided. That being said, a new touch is that players can pick up entire trees. They will first have to eat fruit simply to get stronger, and then lift up the tree from underneath. The tree in question will then enter your pocket, and it can then either be placed elsewhere or potentially sold in Nook's tent. The next set of tools are a little more straightforward. You can obviously catch fish with the flimsy fishing rod, catch bugs with the flimsy net, water plants with the flimsy watering can, and of course there's the vaulting pole. Technically there is one more tool. At the end of the trailer we get a closer look at how you make your own roads. You can even round the endings by using your feet. It adds a lot more personal flair to your town, which we're of course all for. Anyway, back to the DIY menu. The UI for this is absolutely sharp to a point. Not only are there various categories which you can neatly access from the top, but you can also favourite those you have the intention of crafting. The various projects are coloured in the everything menu, simply so you can kind of guess what materials are required. In addition, the menu will show which crafts you have materials, as showcased by the yellow icon here. Finally, if you have these items in your inventory or wardrobe, that'll be highlighted as well. Outside of just tools, various items can be crafted. Something of note is that in the treehouse gameplay, you can actually craft an item with other materials. You'll see the development team make a bonfire by combining a campfire with more wood. One more thing to know about DIY recipes is something the developers mentioned. When you pick up certain items, recipes can be added on the spot. In other places, you have to buy a recipe first before you can use it. Just like the tent, items can be placed anywhere on the map, which is a series first. In this scene, we see a fire, some benches, and even the opportunity to do some laundry. New Horizons combines the build properties of New Leaf with the newly redesigned furniture to make something that's customizable from top to bottom. The fact that you can even do this is absurd and gives the series the overhaul it's needed for some time. For the first time, your location becomes your complete playground. There are some inside furniture improvements too, allowing you to move objects in half steps now. This comes from Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer for 3DS. Now let's discuss the resident services. In addition to the town's bulletin board, which has been a staple of the series since day one, there's a tent where Tom Nook will provide most of its services. There's a free workbench in which you can craft all the times you need. We see in multiple shots that the player will have their own workbench eventually, but it's a nice thing to fall back on. Naturally, we have the ATM we mentioned where players pay off their debt, and also a recycling bin. This may not sound like much, but it's a fantastic way to snag up some free items. You see, in the older titles, it's here people would leave their unwanted items, and that's very likely the case in New Horizons too. Finally, we have Timmy Nook. He has a little store you can fall back on in your times of need. In the beginning, the items on offer are extremely limited, with 3 tools, medicine, and various plants always on offer. In addition, there are 2 furniture items that you can pick at any given moment. In the Welcome to Island Life trailer, these are a cardboard box and a camp stove. In the Japanese trailer, one of these items is replaced with a white table, while the treehouse footage has 2 different items altogether, campfire cookware and beach benches. To net these items, you'll obviously need some money. A quick and easy way to do so is to sell your unwanted items, bugs, fish, or greenery. In this example, the player is selling some weeds, which actually has value this time, 150 bells to be exact. As this is an Animal Crossing game, you can participate in a variety of activities like bug catching. One of our personal favourites, however, is fishing. While nothing seems to have changed in the mechanics, there are some things that we've noticed. During the Treehouse Live segment, the developers caught a clam with a shovel. Clams can be seen spouting little bits of water, which is how you'll hunt them down. Upon catching a clam for the first time, the player will think of a new DIY recipe, fish bait, and in the latest trailer, we see a female player use it to lure fish in her direction. Next to this, we see the same player using a fish toolbox in the winter scene. We're not sure if this means you can store fish in a separate spot, but the possibility certainly leaves us wondering. On a side note, we can see characters walking around with backpacks, which may allow you to carry more items in a singular moment. Next up is tending to flowers. A big thing is that flowers and weeds will now grow in 3 stages. They start with only a stem, followed by a flower starting to grow, and ending with a fully grown beauty. New to New Horizons is the top of the flower can be used as a material. When you pluck them, the stem remains behind, and this suggests that flowers can regrow over time. Naturally, you'll have to take care of them, but eventually they can be used again. As far as flower types are concerned, we've seen roses, pansies, and tulips. Flower decorations can be put on your head, on the front of your eventual house, and likely in even more places. Even weeds can join in on the DIY fun. For example, they can become an umbrella. With all these items or projects, you naturally need to put a lot into your pockets, and the new inventory screen has 20 slots. It has a weird oval shape. The player avatar will closely observe what you're choosing and then pull it out of their pockets. More than ever before, items are stacked on top of each other. This includes weeds, mushrooms, among many others. It'll make managing these 20 slots a lot easier, even if the majority will still likely be taken up by your tools. Luckily, you can favorite them and then hot swap once you're walking around the landscapes. Furniture can either be dropped, placed as an item leaf, or placed into an environment from the menu as well. Finally, there are dedicated buttons for your bells, as well as what we think are your designs. This could just be for clothing, but why would they live in that specific space? We just don't know for now. As you might be aware, the Animal Crossing games run in the same clock as in real time. This means that animal friends, bugs, fish, and special characters adhere to that clock as well. All year round, special events and celebrations bring the world of New Horizons to life. In previous games though, it was only possible to play on the Northern Hemisphere. While this is what the majority live by, in Australia, the seasons are completely flipped around. Luckily for our friends down under, Nintendo saw it fit to include the Southern Hemisphere option too. If you want, you can flip around the seasons, so you can do this without breaking the clock. Speaking of weather, this is when New Horizons has made its biggest strides. The 24-hour cycle circles around the movements of the sun, and this is something that's hit more on the head than ever. On clear days, you can see the shadows of clouds move over the landscapes, and when it rains, the environment darkens just a tiny bit more. But what we love about rainstorms is the movement of the river. This just sells the weather conditions even further. The developers have noted how the trees will show you how the wind, and by extent the weather, is changing. You can see it clearly in this shot, where the windiness has forced the trees to shake wildly. Or what do you think of this shot, with the night so clear that the trees are completely still? The seasons, just like in previous games, will really change how your immediate surroundings will look. In spring, some trees will get a pinkish colour, and blossoms will fall down around them. During summer, the trees will be a standard green, with cicadas making their usual sounds. Everything will turn orange in autumn, with mushrooms being widely available, and even weeds starting to change their colour. Hey, wait a second, what's that huge mushroom over there? Last up, we have the winter, where snow covers the trees, there's snowflakes to collect, and Christmas lights decorate the trees in December time. The fruit trees even get a white colour, which looks quite wonderful. While special characters are all well and good, it's all about the animal friends that you'll see every day while playing the game. Throughout all the footage, we've seen a bunch of returning characters, and we want to quickly highlight them all. The selection includes Bill the duck, Tammy the cub, Filbert the squirrel, Butch the dog, Roald the penguin, Antonio the anteater, Pee-wee the gorilla, Fauna the deer, Peanut the squirrel, Rosie the cat, Angus the bull, Wolfgang the wolf, Lopez the goat, Lily the frog, Fuchsia the deer, Hamlet the hamster, Olivia the cat, Eunice the sheep, Freya the wolf, and Goldie the dog. An interesting note about the animals we meet at the beginning of the new trailer: none of them are wearing their starter clothes from previous titles. This might mean that character-specific clothes are gone, or that right from the get-go, each character has multiple clothing items. In addition, Eunice the sheep is actually wearing a sweater, something that's never been the case in an Animal Crossing game. Sheep were always the ones who would only wear a scarf, so this change is quite interesting. A returning feature in New Horizons is a handful of people can live in the same town. That said, the way you interact with family members or friends in this game is completely new. If you're the type that actively plays with another person, the Cool Islander option is the way to go. You see, up to 8 people can live on a singular island, with 4 players being able to play at a single time on one screen. While there is some flex when it comes to the camera, players need to stay relatively close to one another. Under most circumstances, the camera will follow the so-called leader. If the leader moves too far from the others players will automatically warp to the same location. Luckily, the leader can be changed on the fly, by holding the flag up and pressing a button to give it to another player. By dropping items, the players can exchange their inventory. It's a great addition that'll help you get through the first part of the game a lot faster, without it really feeling like cheating. Of course, there'll be wireless and online multiplayer as well. This increases the ante to a crazy degree, as up to 8 players can relax, work, and play with each other within the same area. What activities you can arrange and the stuff you can accomplish together remains to be seen, but the prospects are surely tantalizing. The last main thing we want to discuss are the various UI elements that give the game a bit more life. When the developers stood still in the treehouse footage, we could see various UI components like a clock and a map. The map, 6x6, offers a grand amount of space to explore and gives us the biggest beach in series history. We also see the 2 tents of your new animal friends, neatly stacked next to each other. The placement is awfully precise, so we have to wonder if you have influence over this aspect. In the local multiplayer footage on Treehouse, we get to see a wheel where you can select an emotion to share. With 8 slots, it might seem limited, but we bet you'll be able to change them on the fly. The final UI element is a rather simple one, yet entirely clever. The text boxes and the lettering now offer the same color scheme as the character's body. Bill's name text is orange while the actual box is brown. It's the little touches, right? While this is mostly everything, you know us. There are some smaller things to point out. In the multiplayer shots of the various trailers, it shows you clearly that New Horizons is more flexible when it comes to skin tone. Previously, entries were lacking in this regard, so this is nice to see. Ledges in Towns make a grand return from the GameCube and Wii installments, meaning there'll be 2 separate planes in the game. How you'll be able to reach them? We just don't know yet. The Nook phone seems to be customizable with various cases. It's uncertain how you obtain them, but we do think this one is particularly snazzy looking. The Welcome to Island Life trailer also showcases our beloved money stones, meaning that 1 stone every day will be filled with coinage. The other rocks will give you clay, rocks, and iron nuggets to craft items with. And hey, because we couldn't fit it anywhere else, here's a new capture line for the pond smelt. I called a pond smelt. Whoever smelt it, dealt it. Phew, so those are all the interesting things we could muster for Animal Crossing New Horizons. While we didn't dive into individual items or objects, that would make the video even longer than it already is. We hope this video gave you a good indication of what to expect when the game launches in March 2020. Until then, be sure to subscribe to Game Explained and also ring that bell for a lot more on Animal Crossing New Horizons and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye!